John was just 31 years old when he was a new father, a very dedicated Christian. He seemed to have everything going for him. He had a great family, beautiful wife, and he loved his family dearly. One day on his way to work, John was met head-on by a drunk driver who swerved into the opposite lane of traffic. John died instantly, leaving a family alone and completely devastated. Amy was newly married, and it didn't take long until she was pregnant with her first child. Amy was the type of person that everybody loved to be around. She was funny, fun, and sweet. She had everything going for her. She was so excited about having a child. The doctors kept reassuring Amy that the baby occurred perfectly healthy. The time came and Amy went into labor. She gave birth to a beautiful daughter. But the only bad thing was the child was stillborn. This left the new couple completely devastated. Sarah was a godly young lady. She was faithful and involved in church. She was a loving member of 3 children. When she found out she was pregnant again, she prayed and prayed for her baby to be born healthy, but when her son was born with Down syndrome, he left Sarah devastated. Jane was in college when she was studying to be a doctor. She had everything going for her. She wasn't your typical college student. She wasn't wild and crazy, but she was studious and smart. Everyone loved Jane. Jane had never had a boyfriend. In fact, she'd never even kissed a guy, and she was just plain saving herself for marriage. Finally, she met the guy of her dreams, and they were engaged to be married. She was out shopping for her wedding dress, and she was attacked on the way to her car, and she was raped. All of her innocence that she had been saving for her husband had been taken away. This left her and her family devastated. Ronnie was a young preacher with a family. He had a lot of promise. He had a lot of passion for the Lord. Ronnie was only 33 years old, but was in great health. In fact, he worked out every day. One day when Ronnie was out, he just collapsed and died. No one knows why. His heart just stopped beating, leaving a wife, family, and kids helpless, unprepared, and devastated. You know, we could all tell stories like these. We could all tell stories of bad things that have happened to good people. No matter how spiritual, no matter how in tune with God, we're still all just left wondering why. You know, we remember on September 11, 2001, when thousands of people went to work, just like any other day of the week. They all expected to come home later that day to their families, but they never got the chance. We remember the scenes of the planes flying into the buildings, killing thousands. People were left without husbands, wives, children, and parents. The nation and the world were left devastated. They were all asking the question, why? You know, I think a lot of us have questions for God. A lot of us do. You should have questions for God. I'm going to start a small 4-part series called exactly that, Questions for God. Tonight, I want to talk about why do bad things happen to good people. It's going to be a question I'm going to ask. Why do bad things happen to good people? The other 3 are going to be, why does a loving God send people to hell? A lot of non-Christians will ask that question. Another one I'd like to do is called, why did Jesus die? And then the last one is, why does evil exist? But have you ever asked the question, why do bad things happen to good people? You know, the world would be a much better place if those bad things just didn't plain happen. The sad thing is, though, is we live in a world in which we're not immune from the pain of the world. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 23 through 29. Are they servants of Christ? I am more. I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in the danger at sea, in the danger from false believers. I have labored and toiled, and I have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst, and have gone often without food. I have been cold and naked. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak? I do not feel weak. Who is led into sin, and I do not inwardly burn. You know, I have some reasons why I believe God lets bad things happen to good people. We all want to know why does he allow those things to happen? Typically, when something bad happens, we are very quick to blame God for the things going on in our lives. We assume that God did this to us. I think it's important to be careful to remember that God does not do things to us. He just allows those things to happen to us, whether they're good or bad. So the first reason, I believe, is to strengthen our faith. In Romans 5, verses 3 and 4, it says, "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Some of the things God lets happen to us, he allows in order to strengthen our faith. I believe that the times in which we grow and learn the most are in those trials and hardships. The scriptures make it very clear that the testing of our faith develops perseverance, and that perseverance develops our character. I believe that if we look at the life of Job, we see that in the end he was more mature in his faith than he was before he ever lost everything. Through Paul's hardships and difficulties, he grew to understand God in a much greater way. Sometimes God allows things to happen to strengthen us in our faith and produce character in our lives. The Hebrews writer reminds us that God only disciplines those that he loves. Sometimes the bad things that we may hate so much might serve as a way to force us to depend totally on God. Perhaps sometimes we receive the testing of our faith and the tough times that we face, knowing and remembering that our faith will be strengthened through those trials. Another reason why bad things happen to good people is because we live in a fallen world. We live in a sinful world. John 9, verses 1 through 3 says, "As he went along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, 'Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?' 'Neither this man nor his parents sinned,' said Jesus, 'but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him.'" A lot of times we try to find someone to blame for everything that's going on in our lives. Of course, when it's good, we take the credit. We take the blame. But when it's not good, it's, "Dang it, why'd that happen? I didn't cause this." But in reality, it happens because we live in a fallen world. With the sin that Adam and Eve brought into the world, also came the pains that we have to deal with here on earth. I wish I could give a better answer. I wish I could give you the answer to who is responsible for all these things, but it's our sin. If sin wasn't in the world, we wouldn't have to worry about asking the question, why did this horrible thing happen? Most Jews in the Old Testament and in Jesus' life assumed that if the bad thing happened, if something bad happened, it was because of some sin that they had committed. Jesus tried to teach that bad things happen to people sometimes just because of the world we live in. There's not always a reason for the things that are going on in our lives, but we must remember we're all part of the world, and the rain does fall on the righteous and the wicked. We all have to face the problems, no matter how righteous we are. I believe that one of the most destructive theologies around today is the wealth and health gospel. Many people seem to believe that if you're a Christian, then you will be blessed with good health and a lot of money. Who can attest to that not being true? This is a promise that Jesus didn't make. He never made that promise. He assured his disciples that in the world that they would have trouble, that they will have trouble. And he reminded them about all the difficulties yet to come. And he encouraged them to stay faithful, just like he encourages you here every week to stay faithful. Because we live in this fallen world. Another reason why bad things happen to good people is because of Satan. Job is a perfect example of a good man who lost everything. Why would God let such a bad thing happen to such a good person? This is the question that Job and his friends often ask God. If you remember, Job's friends and his wife all said that Job must have done some great sin to have to deal with all these horrible things going on. He lost everything. His friends begged him to repent. His wife even begged him to just curse God and die. Get it over with. With friends like that, Who needs enemies? Everyone wanted to blame God for what was going on in Job's life, but what Job and his friends did not know is that Satan was responsible for some of the things that was going on. Job 1, verses 6 through 12 tells us, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then. Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. A lot of times, like I said, we want to blame God for the bad things happening. We wonder why God puts us through such horrible things. But we forget that there is another force at work. I'm here to remind you that Satan is active, he's real, he's working hard at your soul. He's working hard at your heart, right here tonight, right now. He wants to destroy us. He wants to pull us away from God. Many people seem to lose their faith in God and blame God for things that may be taking place. God's not always to blame. But there are some responses that when bad things happen to good people that I believe that need to happen. It seems that most people would really want to respond not negatively to the bad things that happen to them. But how do you respond when something horrible goes on? How do you respond when bad things happen? Do you respond with doubt? We can all know how to give the biblical answer for why bad things happen to good people sometimes. But when the situation affects us personally, it could be a completely different situation. I believe that we can learn how we should react and respond when we are going through a tough time, just like Job. In Job, verse 1, 20 through 22, it says, "At this Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head, and then he fell to the ground and worshipped and said, 'Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised.' In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing." I love how he responded to God. He lost everything. Imagine everything in your life gone. Would you be angry? Would you shake your fists at God? Or would you be like Job and fall on the ground and worship? He never lost his faith. He never lost trust. You know, first, when we respond to our trials and hard times, and how we respond can allow for spiritual growth. We have an option. And the reality is when we all experience things that we don't like, we have an option of how to react, how to respond to it. We may choose how to react during those times, and we can respond by losing our faith and doubting God, or we can respond by worshiping Him. Many people do not understand how a loving God would let these things take place. The number one question that people have about God is, why does He allow evil to take place? And it seems to me that doubting God and turning our backs on Him is just the easy way out. It's the easy way out by saying, why does He let this horrible thing happen to me? I'm done. It's the easy way out. Well, I have a second option. We can use those times to grow and mature in our faith. I love the example of how Paul responds when bad things happen to him. He had given his life to God, and he was devoted to preaching the gospel. He faced so much persecution. When he was beaten and arrested, he rejoiced. He didn't wonder why God would allow this to happen. The truth of the matter is, no matter how much we wonder why God lets these things happen, God doesn't mean that God's not there. He's right there. Especially when you ask, Lord, hold my hand through this. Turning away from God is not going to take away the pain of going through the experience. I would much rather have him there holding my hand than turn my back on him. Times of trouble and hardship can be used for spiritual growth. Through the valley, we can learn a lot about God. The other response is the praise. John Ortberg, in his book, The Life You Always Wanted, tells the story of a lady named Mabel. He met Mabel in a state-run convalescent hospital. He said he would often go there and would always leave discouraged. But on one Mother's Day, he went there and he would hand out roses to the old ladies there in the hospital. He went down the hallway and gazed into a room and saw a lady in there. And she was strapped to a wheelchair. And he said, she was strapped in a wheelchair, and he said her face was an absolute horror. He said that she had empty stare, that he could tell she was blind. He knew that she was near deaf because of the large hearing aid. And one side of her face was being eaten by cancer. There was a discolored and running sore covering one part of the cheek, which had pushed her nose to one side, dropped one eye, and distorted her jaw. As a consequence, she was drooling constantly. He said she was the most pitiful sight he had ever seen. She was so bad that the new nurses would be sent to Mabel first, because if they could handle her, they could handle anything else going on in the hospital. She was 89 years old and been in the hospital for 25 years. He said he was pretty reluctant to talk to her, but he went and handed her a rose. And Mabel did respond. She asked him if she could give the rose to someone else because she was blind. And she did just that. She handed it to someone else and said, "This is for you from Jesus." He began to get to know Mabel over the next few weeks, and they became good friends. Often they would sing together old songs, and she would comment on them. One day he asked Mabel a question. He said, "Mabel, what do you think about when you're just lying here?" She said, "I think about my Jesus." She went on to explain how good Jesus has been to her. And then she began to sing, "Jesus is all the world to me, my life, my joy, my all. He is my strength from day to day. Without him I would fall. When I am sad, I go to him. No other can cheer me so. When I am sad, he makes me glad. He's my friend." The song is a wonderful expression of the joy that we can have in Christ. And it is easy for us to sing that song and reflect on how good of a friend we have in Jesus. It is easy for us in our comfort to sing such words and mean them. I find it amazing that a person who has nothing could sing the same song. I hope that if I was ever like Mabel, that I could respond with the joy she did. I hope that I ever go through some of the trials that Job went through, that I can fall on the ground and still worship. Mabel praised God for what she did have instead of dwelling on what she didn't. So often we want to complain, but I think we could go a lot further in life if we would count our blessings instead of complaining. How will you respond to God when something bad happens to you? They're going to come. Hard times are going to come for you. Christ tells us that'll happen. But we can rest assured that God will be right there with us to help us through our trials. I'm not going to try and tell you that I completely understand why bad things happen to good people. I don't. I don't understand everything about God. But I don't have to either. I wish I could give you some nice answer as to why things happen. I really wish I could. But I can't. I don't think anyone can truly tell you why. No matter why those things happen, know that our response in faithfulness to God is the correct response. You know, God promises, the Lord promises so many things. He promises that He's here tonight. He's here tonight with us. And He asked us to do things. And one of those things is that when we're together, we remember Him in taking the bread and wine. So as we come into communion, I ask that you take a moment and go to Him in prayer and thank Him for getting you through the hard times you've gone through thus far in life. And ask Him to be there through the rest of the hard times, as well as the good. You gotta remember He's right there with us in the good times too. Will you join me in prayer, please? Heavenly Father, we thank You for giving us Your word, giving us Your word that can help us learn how to deal with things here on earth, Lord. Especially when bad things happen, and we can just pick up Your word and know that You are right there in it, and You are right there with us, just holding our hand and leading us through it. Lord, we thank You for the good things too. We thank You for the beautiful weather that You've given us today, this beautiful building that we can come and worship You. Lord, I ask that You use tonight to just strengthen everyone here. That when we walk outside this building, we can hold our heads high. We can be proud to be one of Your chosen, knowing that regardless of what happens to us in life, that You'll be right there to pick us up.